Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here with Philippe J. Fournier for this week's episode of The Numbers. Philippe, how are you doing? How are you doing today? How are you doing?
If Eric looks shaken up at the onset of this podcast, is that him and I just had an argument about electoral maps, and to be continued, my friend. Good morning, Eric. Good morning, everyone. Just let everybody know I shut my phone this time. I hoping there are no floor crossers during the recording. I'm really happy to see you, Eric. We have much to talk about. We have provincial polls, federal polls. We have redistricting. I have a new projection for Quebec. And there was also a very interesting poll that came out from the Angus Reid Institute on Pierre Poilievre's future. So, Eric, as the conductor of the numbers, where would you like to start today? Oh, and we have
we should probably we should probably start the first 5-10 minutes talking about whether the Habs are going to win or not. But anyway, we got 3 teams in. I don't remember what the over/under was with the amount of teams. I think we did 2.5.
It was 2.5, and I took the under. You took the over. You got this.
I did the over, but I thought actually it was going to be Winnipeg. But
yeah, well, at the time, the Senators really sucked, and they recovered. But they're in tough right now. But
yeah,
hockey takes maybe later. Maybe a bonus content for hockey takes. Let's talk about the polls.
Okay. We'll talk about the actual politics. Maybe it's just because it seems like things have really quieted down a little bit after the by-elections. The fact that the government now has their majority and they're moving forward with getting the majority on all the committees. It does feel like we're settling into a little bit more of a quiet period. But what's the term? Idle hands make. What's the term? It's idle hands make something. I can't remember, but it means idle hands make people get busy because they got nothing else to do. And so this is the question that I think we're going to start with today, because we only had 2 polls that came out over the last week, at least 2 national polls, from Liaison and from Nano, so the 2 trackers, and they showed very little movement from the last time they had independent samples. We had 45 for the Liberals in Liaison, 33 for the Conservatives, 10 for the NDP. In Nanos, it was 46 for the Liberals, 32 for the Conservatives, and 12 for the NDP. So pretty solid consistency between those 2 polls, both showing a lead for the Liberals of around 12 to 14 points, which is not nothing. And so that means that, the Liberals have their majority, and they have a big lead in the polls, so they know that they can kind of sit pretty for a little while. And we had also a new poll that came from the Angus Reid Institute. Now, they didn't, as of recording, they haven't released any of the other data, which I'm sure they collected in terms of voting intentions and stuff. Maybe it'll come in the next few days. But they drilled down on Pierre Poilievre's own personal ratings among the general public and among people who voted for the Conservative Party last year. Yeah. And it raises the question for me that now that we're at a period where the next election is technically scheduled to take place in 3.5 years, 3 years and 6 months.
Yep.
That gives some time for Pierre Poilievre to maybe catch his breath and try to catch up to the Liberals, close that gap. But it also might give time for people to think, those idle hands to think, we have time to make some decisions about our leadership. So what do you think right now about the solidity of Pierre Poilievre as leader of the Conservative Party?
Just as a little quick note before we get further, it's not like the Angus Reid Institute asked new questions and wanted to drill down, a deep dive on Pierre Poilievre. This is a tracker that they have where they ask people, what do you have a favorable or unfavorable impression, and then you can see it by past vote, by demographics, by region. His numbers are unchanged from most of the winter and the spring. In this poll, 60% of Canadians see Monsieur Poilievre unfavorably, 33% favorably. That's exactly the same numbers we had for most of the winter and the spring. So his pivot, or his seemingly a pivot in tone, has not improved or worsened his perception. It looks like it's really baked in. And so I think it's really interesting that the Angus Reid Institute went back and used the same questionnaire as last summer after the defeat against the Liberals. Do you think Pierre Poilievre should lead the Conservative Party into the next election, or should another leader take place? Among Conservative voters, like a year ago, almost to the day, a year ago, among these voters, 30% think that he should be replaced. Now you would say, okay, but 30% is still a minority. 57% believe that he should stay on and be the leader in the next general election. But that's down 11 points. It was 68% last summer, now it's 57%. That's beyond the poll's margin of error. Those who think he should be replaced, it went from 18% to 30%. So, I mean, I'm not saying that this trend is going to be necessarily linear, but the only thing we can conclude from these numbers is the poll was August, so it's that 8 months. The last 8 months have not helped Pierre Poilievre. That's what we can conclude. Now, what does it mean going forward? I still think that Poilievre has immense support from the base, but the base will not necessarily choose. It's going to be probably the MPs, his caucus, whom he will have to treat very carefully. Because at some point, if they see that there's no way the Conservatives can win in 2029 or before, I mean, if they have this killer instinct, they would, it's like the last minute before the playoffs, you can change a coach, you can change leaders. But I'm not sure if we can go beyond that. He has not had a good spring in winter, but the numbers now reflect that. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, well, it shows that, among the electorate that supported the Conservative Party the last time, Angus Reid looks at past Conservative voters, like people who voted for the party in the last election, rather than people who would necessarily vote for them today, although it is mostly the same people, that you have roughly about 10 to 15% of that group that aren't really all that enamored with Pierre Poilievre anymore, which kind of reflects a little bit of where we are in the polls, right? The Conservatives got 41% of the vote in the last election. On average, they now seem to be more around 34, 35, something like that. So that's a drop of 6 points. 6 or 7 points. So, it kind of makes sense that it maybe about a tenth of the Conservative base has gone elsewhere. And you see this among the different numbers, right? You just mentioned a 12-point increase in the people who say he should be replaced. In his favorability numbers among past Conservative voters, just after the election, he had 88% of Conservative voters who said that they had a favorable view of him, and only 9% had an unfavorable view. So this was after the defeat. So this was baking in the fact that he had lost the last election. Now the number is 75% who have a favorable view and 20% a negative one. Still good numbers, but that is down 13 points, and the people who say they don't like him anymore is up 11 points. So you've definitely seen that there's been that problem there with the party, and it does explain some of the drop in support that the Conservatives have had over the last little while. So it's not just that people like Mark Carney, they like what he's doing and all that. There is a chunk of the Conservative base that is not all that pleased with what Pierre Poilievre has done over the last few years. But you said, that he still has significant support among the base. So at the January convention, now you had to be... you had to want to go to the convention, and party's team, Poilievre's team, would have ensured that they had more. They wouldn't have just let it take for granted that he would get a big support. So they probably
it was not cheap.
Put some effort
it was not cheap. Yeah.
No, they probably put some effort to make sure that the room was full of fans. But he had 87% support among the delegates who were at the convention. Now the Angus Reid Institute asked this same question. Roughly, I can't exactly tell from how the chart is, but around the same time as the convention. And it was 78 favorable, 18 unfavorable. So from that point, it hasn't shifted that much. So it's not that there's been a big deterioration in his numbers over the last few months. It does seem to have taken place primarily last fall. And so if we see that the favorability numbers haven't dropped that much over the last few months, among Conservative voters, you could probably presume that if he had another convention, he would probably get something similar to 87. Because if the Conservative base and the Conservative membership is relatively in sync in terms of which directions they go, so I think he would still pass a membership vote. But right now my projections, I have the Conservatives leading in I think 83 seats.
83?
Yeah. Taking into account potential kind of underperformance or overperformance from the polls, I think I have them at around 100. So that represents a loss of 40 MPs at least, and as many as nearly 60. So if you're one of those 40 to 60, and you continue to see polls like we saw with Liaison and Nanos with a 32 or a 33, Do you really care that much what the members think, or are you worried about your future as an MP?
Yeah. Well, do you care what the members think? They would all publicly say, of course, yes. But we know that it's not always true. From many conversations I had with several people. Yeah, the members can be very agitated sometimes, but you have to think a long-term strategy, and members usually don't. Now, I have the Conservatives at 98 seats on average, so I have them a tiny bit higher than you, but that's still a lot of MPs that would probably lose. The problem is many of them would probably have to credit Poilievre for leading them there, right? Poilievre led them to 144 seats. He was leading by 25 points. This has been said many times, but he did increase the number of MPs from previous elections. It's just that now he has Andrew Scheer numbers, he has Erin O'Toole numbers, and he's facing a prime minister that's very popular. The risk is always to do worse. If you remove Poilievre, who's immensely popular in the Conservative base, again, like 57% think that he should stay. Is that a great number? It's not a great number, but it's still a majority. And so going against the will of these people, you run the risk of having somebody worse. And who is waiting in the wings? I know I've heard Jason Kenney and other names like that. I just I'm not sure I believe that. Although it would be interesting. Let's be fair here. It would be interesting. But Pierre Poilievre built such an incredible machine when he won that leadership with a crushing number in 22. I don't see anybody waiting in the wings be able to replicate that. I mean, if, let's say, MPs decided to have a confidence vote against Poilievre, I'm pretty sure he could run in his own leadership race to replace himself, and he probably would win. And that would be, yeah, you're smiling because for the spectacle
it's
of
happened
it would
before.
be, it's happened before. It's rare. The
Not
spectacle
within the Conservative
of it.
Party.
I'm sorry?
Not within the Conservative Party. Joe Clark did it. He ran for his own leadership in 83 and lost to Mulroney. John Diefenbaker, who did not want to go, ran in 1967, did very poorly. So it isn't that unusual. Preston Manning did run when they formed the Canadian Alliance. He ran against Stockwell Day, which was, he ran to run the new party. It wasn't exactly the same situation, but it's not super unusual within the Conservative Party. And it's funny you say that. I hadn't really thought of that. But I guess I could imagine that he could lose the Reform Act vote and decide, screw you guys, I'm going to run for the leadership anyway.
And what kind of message would that send? I mean, again, he built a fundraising and membership machine that is unequaled, like across all parties in Canadian history. Like we had never seen such a membership drive in 22 for Pierre Poilievre, and a lot of these people are still loyal to him. When the Conservatives say, Poilievre himself said, we won 25 additional seats and 2.3, I think, million votes more than the previous election. That is, I mean, you still lost, but that's a solid argument for growth. And why didn't Mr. Harper was not pushed out after he lost in 04? Because in 04, because he did increase the party. He forced the Liberals into a minority. There was growth and an opening there. That's why Mr. Harper stayed even though he lost. So I find these numbers from English Read absolutely fascinating, and I hope we get a regular tracking of this publicly, of course. But I do not see how this will change a lot of minds, especially since many Conservatives who are fan of Poilievre, whom I talked to at the convention, they say we're not governing or we're not leading our party according to what the polls say. Now, it may be foolish, but it may be foolish to do so, but it's conviction. And conviction can take you a long way in politics.
You said that a lot of the people in the caucus owe their seats to Poilievre, and there's probably some who do. I would say probably maybe 20, 25, right? Because even, we're talking about the fact that he has right now Erin O'Toole or Andrew Scheer numbers. Those two could have, or won around 120 seats, right? So there is that kind of base that they would win anyway. There's also another, let's say, 40 to 60 candidates who would have won if the election had gone how it was supposed to. There was a number of especially out in Atlantic Canada, a lot of provincial cabinet ministers who resigned their seats to run because they were kind of shoo-ins to win in PI, for example, and probably make cabinet, who now don't have political careers. So there might be other people outside of the party that aren't so keen on it, now, even if the members are. But is there someone waiting in the wings? We always, there's always this. There would eventually be some people who would step forward. But what I'd hope some pollsters, what they'll do in the next few months, is ask those hypotheticals. Because when we've seen it in the past, that they've asked hypotheticals, how would you vote if it was Jason Kenney or other people? Yeah. And Poilievre would beat them, right? And he would be he would be still the best option out of those that were tested. But I haven't seen a poll like that now in quite a while.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what a poll like that would still show. Would it still show that Poilievre would be the best out of some potential replacements? Because I think that was his strongest argument after the election. It was his strongest argument when, he wasn't really moving that forward earlier on, that he was still seen as the best option and would do better than a potential replacement. But I haven't tested that theory for the last little while. So I'm curious if he is still their best option. Maybe there is someone waiting in the wings or, ready to pick up the phone who could do as well and maybe better. But we don't know that right now.
The timing matters, though, Eric, here. Because, the same poll. Do you approve or disapprove of the performance of Prime Minister Mark Carney? 57 in BC, that's plus 20. 46 in Alberta, that's minus 6. But minus 6 for a Liberal Prime Minister in Alberta? That's still pretty good historically, right? You're plus 17 in Ontario, plus 17 in Manitoba, plus 31 in Ontario, plus 42 in Quebec. Right now, nobody wants that job right now. Mark Carney is rolling a wave. It will pass at some point, and I think it's that at that point when the Liberals and Mark Carney become unpopular, because they will one day, when they start slipping in the polls, will we see the Conservative pick up those numbers? Because if they don't, if let's say a year and a half from now we have the Liberals and Conservative tied around 36 apiece, that means the Liberals have fallen, the Conservatives are not picking that up. Now it's a problem, and now I think the voices that want to oppose Mr. Poilievre would get a little louder and with less discreet, let's say, with journalists. For now, I really do think that Pierre Poilievre is safe. He is their strongest soldier for now.
How long, though, is that for now? That's my question here. There's 3.5 years. They don't need to do it. If there's people who are wondering about it, there's no rush.
There's no rush. That's true.
But let's say we're in a year.
Yep.
A year from now. It's 2027. We're entering the summer of 2027. And it's still a plus 14, plus 12 for the Liberals.
Yeah.
At that point.
The mood is there. That's hurting. Yeah.
Yeah. And those people who you say might not be that interested to pick up the job right now might look at that and be like, well, we're getting closer to the election, and there'd be less time up on the opposition benches. So, yeah, it's both. It's kind of both a blessing and a curse. He's got more time to kind of prove that he still has it, right? That he can still get the party back to the 40% that they were at in the election, and that he can still win in the future. But it also means that there's time now for people to consider those options. It's almost like he has like a certain amount of time to prove that he should get a second chance.
It's like an audition, yeah.
And when the election was just around the corner, there wasn't really that. There wasn't the time frame to replace him. So I think it's an interesting moment. But I wanted to, just to continue talking about some federal numbers, unless you have more to say about Poilievre.
Go ahead.
It's kind of related, is that we had a Léger poll. Now, we'll talk about the provincial numbers afterwards, but it was a Léger poll out of Quebec.
Yep.
And it had federal numbers.
Yes.
And it only had, again, just to kind of twist the knife a little bit more, 14% for the Conservatives in Quebec.
Yeah. Which
is not a good number.
Hang on, I see 17 here.
17? Did I make that mistake here?
Oh, the 14 is with undecideds. But that's still okay. So it's 47 Liberals. That's a big sample only in Quebec. That's 47% Liberal, 29 Bloc. So the Bloc is holding steady. 17 Conservative. That's still pretty bad, though. And it's a reflection also of... we saw the results in Terrebonne, and I know a lot of people dismiss Terrebonne, especially for the Conservatives, saying, oh, it was a runoff between the Liberals and the Bloc Québécois, their voters stayed home. And the problem was that, yeah, but that theory that you put forward, that Conservatives stayed home, usually they don't. And that was the problem. But still, that's a big drop for the Conservatives in the province. And during the Liberal convention, oh, did we hear rumors of more floor crossers. And now those have not materialized yet. But when there were rumors of floor crossers last fall and last winter, we first rolled our eyes and then we were surprised by actual floor crossers happening. And I did hear many names of Quebec Conservatives. And I was like, there's no way they're crossing the floor. And yeah, these are not good numbers for the Conservatives in Quebec. And I know they have only 10 seats in the province, but to win an election, they will need those seats. So, yeah, that would be a big score for the Liberals in Quebec. 47%. I don't think Justin Trudeau ever had that in a poll. Maybe in the peak of the pandemic, but it's never been that high. So, yeah.
Yeah, my apologies are right. It was 17, not 14. Yeah,
but 14 is with undecided. So
yeah, I mixed up the two columns. My apologies. But one of the reasons that we've said how there's been a lot of talk about Quebec Conservatives being floor crossers, in part because the Quebec wing is seen as a bit more moderate. You have like someone like Dominique Vien, who used to be a Quebec Liberal, so you could say like, oh, used to the red. But a lot of the seats in that the Conservatives hold in Quebec are pretty safe, surprisingly safe.
Well, there's two of them that are not.
They have been. They have been. There's a couple that you're right. They haven't been. Yeah. But this poll had the Liberals ahead 14 points in the Quebec City area, where pretty much all of the Conservative MPs are. Yep. So at this point, there might actually be an argument that a lot of them aren't that safe anymore. That they might have been in the last election. They still won a lot of them by decent margins. Yeah. But right now they might not. Right. So you start to wonder again if that makes people think. Because yes, floor crossing is done for many reasons. One of them is self-preservation. Yeah.
Exactly. In that poll, if I want to, because thing is, sometimes when we see big gender gaps, and I think we usually see bigger gender gaps in phone polls. I'm not sure exactly why. In internet panels, usually it's not that pronounced. Among men in Quebec, again, this is a big sample federally in Quebec. 30% for the Liberals. 40% for the Liberals, 31% for the Bloc, 22% for the Conservatives. This is close to what the election was in Quebec. Among women, 54% Liberal, 27% Bloc, 11% Conservatives. So, the Liberals are doing very, very strongly among Quebec women. It's not even close, 27-point lead.
All right, well, why don't we move on to the Quebec numbers from the poll? We recorded Les Chiffres earlier this week, but we did not have the Léger numbers.
Nope. We did not.
So these numbers, I'll just go through the top lines for Léger. This is done for Québécois. Had 31% for the Parti Québécois, had 28% for the Liberals, 17% for the CAQ, 14% for the Quebec Conservatives, and 8% for QS. This is a relatively big shift for the Liberals because they were at 33% in the poll that was done just before the CAQ leadership was over. The poll came out during the Liberal convention in Montreal. So I'm not sure what to make of that. Is this kind of a weird blip because it does reverse what was a pretty consistent trend, or is it a sign of problems for the Liberals that have emerged over just in the last couple of weeks? Because Charles Milliard did have to kind of walk back some comments he made about the use of the notwithstanding clause after his caucus wasn't so happy. So
his English caucus was gave him some problems. Listen, I would say the numbers overall do not have, they seem really different, but they really aren't that much. That 33 for the Liberal felt a bit high. The average is closer to 30 or 31. But regardless, the numbers, it's the numbers among Francophone voters. And I know you know that, Eric, and most of our listeners know that. With 31%, the PQ could win a majority government. And please, fans of proportional representation, don't let your head explode here. They could win a majority because there's about 40% of Francophones right now, give or take a few points, that support the PQ. But the 60% of Francophones that don't are split four ways. And in this Léger poll, it showed that Madame Fréchette, the new premier, the new leader of the CAQ, is taking directly a bite out of Francophone voters who were tempted by the Liberals in early April. So right now the numbers in Quebec, my friend, are in flux. And so it's really hard to draw hasty conclusions out of this, because usually the polling, especially in provinces like Quebec, we see, and elsewhere, we see usually outside of campaigns, numbers move slowly. There are exceptions, but usually they move slowly and we see long-term trends. Over the past 2 months, we have seen numbers go wild. I mean, just a month ago, Léger, not even a month ago, Léger had the CAQ at 9%, and now they're at 17%. Did they double their support in the past month? No, it was it was voters waiting to see the new leader. I mean, they were waiting to see if Bernard Dréville could pull this off in his CAQ leadership, and he didn't. So we have to trust the average here. The average will be very important because numbers are in flux. And that election, I mean, who can predict? Right now, I'm publishing today an update on QC125. I'll give it to you. I'll give it to our listeners. You have this in exclusivity. It's going to be published this afternoon. My average right now, it's... I should pull this up. I don't have it. It's 64 seats for the Parti québécois with a floor at 55. The Liberals are at 44 seats, so 20 seats behind. And you figured, 20 seats behind, it's a couple of points and they could pick that up. The ceiling is at 53 for the Liberals. So even though the Parti québécois is statistically tied with the Liberals in most of the polls we have seen in Quebec, they have a 98% chance of winning the most seats if an election was held today. Again, the distribution of votes in the province, it's basically the Parti québécois is taking votes from the CAQ in every region, in the suburbs of Montreal, in Quebec City, and they are on their way to win. Now, we're not saying that it will happen. The election is in 5 months and a half. Many things will happen. But right now, there's no other conclusion in the numbers than to say the Parti québécois is overwhelming favorite at this point.
To win the most seats.
To win the most
but
seats.
Not necessarily a majority.
Not necessarily a majority.
That has real implications. Now, in terms of passing just, regular legislation, minority versus majority has some issues, but it isn't as significant as the promise that the PQ has to hold a referendum. If they fall into minority territory, it gets much trickier to move to a referendum, especially if QS, which is also Sovereignist Party, which has a different approach when it comes to independence, wants to have a constituent assembly and these kinds of things. But if the PQ falls short of a majority, then the referendum might be off the table. So it will have implications, even if we're not yet in the territory where we're talking about whether the Liberals or the PQ wins. We are in the territory where we're talking about whether the PQ is strong enough, if they do end up winning the most seats, to actually go ahead with the referendum promise. So those are pretty important implications in Quebec, but also in the rest of the country. If it's a PQ minority government that doesn't do a referendum, doesn't really impact the rest of the country that much. No. Sure, there might be some issues on various things, but
picking fights, yeah.
The difference between 62 and 64 seats in Quebec will be pretty important.
Québécois, also Léger, I mean, this was a Québécois commission pulled. And so they added a question, which is, I mean, for content, beautiful. If M. Plamondon, the leader of the PQ, promised that there wouldn't be a referendum in the first mandate, who would you vote for? Parti québécois shoots up 8 points. And those 8 points are taken for everybody, from the Liberals, from the CAQ, for the Conservatives, even Québec solidaire. And they would lead by 14 points. They would win a massive, perhaps a 90-seat majority government. It's just that, could the Habs win if they don't play hockey? Just let's remove their sticks. It's an interesting question because the Parti québécois has said this in the past. Perhaps, now is not the time. We will govern, and then we'll see eventually les conditions gagnantes. It's been said many times in different ways. What did Bernard Henry say? L'assurance morale de gagner le référendum. Plamondon came out the day with a smirk, and good on him, and he said, "Okay, that's very cool that we see this poll. I'm not changing my mind. There will be a referendum if we're elected in the first mandate." So it gave us an indication of maybe how much of an anchor it will be. That campaign is going to be something. We said it many times. I'm reiterating this. It's not the 22 campaign, which was a snore with the CAQ just dominating everybody. And this is going to be quite the campaign. But more to be continued here.
All right, should we move on?
Okay. Eric, I have a quiz for you. The quiz is simple. It's trivia. And I would like to say, in the past episode, and I think the previous one as well, we mentioned how some of our members and some listeners had submitted questions for ideas, a quiz question for you, because I think many of our listeners like when I torment you a little bit. And so I built a quiz, and many of these questions were, I rewrote them in some ways, but they were inspired by one of our listeners. His name is Sasha from Coquitlam in British Columbia. Also, I would like a shout out to Denise. Denise, I saw what you sent me. It was a bit too late for me, but I will get to your questions because they were really good. Eric's going to suffer with this. So I have 5 trivia questions for you. They're about prime ministers and some numbers and stuff. So it's there's no very close team. I think gold has to be 5 out of 5.
Oh boy, okay.
Well, I think since it's only 5. I will give you like a free strike at some point in the questions, but gold is 5, silver is 4, and bronze is 3. So, are you ready? Are you ready, my friend?
I am.
Let's go. Eric, number 1. 3 prime ministers of Canada, at some point during their long careers as MPs, represented the riding of Carleton. Who are they?
Prime ministers.
Yeah. Not necessarily prime ministers while they were representing Carleton, but they did, over their career, represent Carleton in Ontario, just outside of Ottawa, the former seat of Pierre Poilievre.
Okay, one of them was John Turner, pretty sure, though not as prime minister, I don't think.
I think he was in BC, right, when he was prime minister?
At that point. I think the other 2 were Robert Borden and John A. Macdonald.
Is that your final answer, my friend?
It'll be my final. I'm not sure about Borden.
John A. Macdonald is correct. John Turner, the short-lived prime minister, is correct. And so is Robert Borden. Oh. That's true. 3 of them represented the riding of Carleton just outside Ottawa. Congratulations, Eric. You get the point. Okay.
It was a good landing place if you lost your seat, or because I think at one point back when John A. Macdonald would have run, you could run in multiple ridings. So you could choose kind of the one that you wanted to do, and then you could choose kind of like a safe landing spot. And then if you won both, you chose which one you wanted, and then they ended up doing a by-election in the other one. And a lot of party leaders did that in order to make sure they didn't lose a chance, which is an interesting choice you could make. But
do you know when they stopped that practice? Was there a law, or they just stopped?
I think
I want to dig in on this.
Yeah, I don't know when they
because
stopped
people don't do this now.
Yeah, but I think they would have stopped it maybe 100 years ago or a bit before that, because I'm pretty sure Laurier did it a couple times.
Okay. I'll you know what? I'm curious now. Maybe I'll look that up. Okay. Number 2, Eric. 24 people have served as Prime Minister of Canada. 4 of which were not born in Canada, nor in jurisdictions that are now part of Canada. Who are these 4?
It was John A. Macdonald, who was born in Scotland, and there's Alexander Mackenzie, who was also born in Scotland. There was John Turner, who was born in England, and the last one. Okay. Who was the last one?
There are no free strikes here. If you don't get it, he gives you 0.
Okay, wait. All right, I have to go backwards. I don't think it was anybody too recent. So, okay. Wouldn't have been Mackenzie, King, or Saint Laurent. Wouldn't have been Mien or Borden.
It's a multiple choice question. There are 24.
Was it? Yeah.
Oh, Eric
Was it?
stumped here.
I'm gonna choose an early one. Was it Mackenzie Bowl? It was.
Yes, it was. So Johnny McDonald, Alexander Mackenzie, Bowl. I said Bowell. Mackenzie Bowl, and John Turner were not born in Canada. And you are correct. You get the point. Wow, that was a pull. That was a nice pull. You have 2 for 2. One more and you medal.
Mackenzie McDonald were like immigrants. They came. I'm not sure about Bowl. He probably was too. But Turner, I think it was like his I think his father was Canadian. Like that wasn't. It was just that he happened.
Like, was
to
he
have
a
been born
diplomat
in
or something?
England.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, the first few were, they didn't have any pre-existing links with Canada.
That's interesting. I have it here. Let me just check here. Mackenzie Bowell was born in Rickinghall, England. I don't know where that is, but interesting. Okay. Number 3, Eric. How many, and who are they, prime ministers who have never led a majority government?
Ooh. Okay.
And now Mark Carney is one of those who has led a majority government. Sorry, doesn't count. But 24 prime ministers. How many prime ministers, and who are they, who never led a majority government?
Okay, well, Pearson would be one. That was one of the reasons why he kind of left. Clark didn't. And then who would be the other one? Because Martin inherited one.
I didn't say how many.
Oh, wait. Oh, you didn't.
You have to tell me how many. And who would.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, there was those two. McDonald, Mackenzie, Elizabeth, Laurier. Okay, Diefenbaker would have.
Yeah, big one too.
I think it might just be those two. Yes.
Final answer?
Yes.
And you are correct. Lester Pearson and Joe Clark are the only ones who have never led a majority government. So, interesting, huh? Anyway.
Because Martin inherited one, even though he never won one. But yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. This one, I think, is a little tougher, but, you have 3 for 3, so why not go a little tougher?
Already on the podium, so.
Yes, you are. Absolutely. Okay, Eric. The first ever NDP MP in Quebec was the result of a floor crossers. And the next 2 NDP MPs in Quebec won their seats in by-elections. I will give you a point if you can tell me who they are or what riding they represented. So the first 3 NDP MPs in Quebec ever.
Okay, well, the first 2 who were elected were Phil Edmonston and Tom Mulcair.
Okay.
Edmonston was in like 89, I think, and he was in Beloeil-Chambly, and Mulcair was in Outremont. But the first being a floor crosser.
That's right.
Oh, that I don't know. No, I don't know what that is. I can think of some names, but I don't think they were actually... like the only name I can think of is like Robert Clich, but I don't think he was a floor crosser. I think he was just like an NDPer that didn't get elected. You got me. I don't know.
Okay. So Tom Mulcair in Outremont was the 3rd ever NDP MP in Quebec, the 2nd elected. Phil Edmonston in Chambly. You said Beloeil-Chambly. It was Chambly back then, but
that was just Chambly.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. Won a by-election in 90. I mean, he had finished a strong 2nd place in the 88 election, but was not pleased with the direction of the NDP after it did not run for re-election in 93. It was a good thing for him because he would have lost, right? So are you're conceding the point here?
Yeah, I don't know. Is there a clue? What party did this person come from?
I will give you a clue. This person resigned from the PC caucus in 86, tried to join the Liberals, but the Riding Association rejected him, so he ultimately joined Ed Broadbent's NDP. If you can give me a name or a writing, I will give you a point.
No, I got nothing.
You're blank?
Yeah.
His name was Robert Toupin in Terrebonne.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Okay,
So the
that's
first
good. But no,
ever
that doesn't
NDP.
even ring a bell. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I think I knew of a floor crosser, but it was the thank you for Sasha who submitted these suggestions. Maybe
Hey,
do
next
a little
time-
research.
Next time the NDP complains about a floor crosser, you just bring up Robert Toupin. They took him 40 years ago. What's
They
the
did,
problem?
absolutely did. And there are pictures, I looked at all the archives from the Gazette, there are pictures of Mr. Broadbent being all happy. Finally, I have representation in Quebec. But it was short-lived. Okay. In this next questions, it's a two-parter, but to get the point, you have to get both parts correct.
Okay.
Okay. And it's like a true or false or something. So you'll see. Okay. If we only count the seats won in general election victories, who won the most seats between Brian Mulroney and Stephen Harper?
Do you mean like in total, adding them all
Yes.
up together?
Yes.
Oh,
Only
that's
general
okay.
election victories. Who won the most seats between Brian Mulroney and Stephen Harper?
Okay. Well, Mulroney won, I think, 211 in '84, and then he won like 164 or something like that. So that would put him at 3.
Do you have your calculator? Your used
375.
worn-out calculator.
It's still here. 370. Okay, so if Mulroney's around 375, okay, then Harper won like 99 the first time.
The
Then
first time he
won-
didn't win.
Yeah, and then he won 120, so that would put him at 220. Then
No,
he won
but
100.
the first one he didn't win. I said general election
Oh.
victories.
Okay, so the first one he won 124 or something like that. The next one he won 144 or something like that, which put him at 264. And then after that he won 160. So Harper would have won more seats than Mulroney.
Okay, second part. Only counting seats in general election victories. Who won the most seats between Justin Trudeau and Jean Chrétien?
Oh, they each had 3 elections. That's interesting.
And Trudeau had a bigger house.
He had a bigger house too. Okay, so he won 184, and then he won 157, and then it was like 159. Okay, so that's 300 and 315 plus
Carried a one.
500 seats ish. And then Chrétien, would he have won 500? Because he won 154 or something like that in 97. And then
You
he was
remember the
back
middle
up.
one. Okay.
Yeah, he was back up. I'm going to say it was Chrétien.
Okay. So Harper won 433 seats to Mulroney's 380. So
Okay.
you are correct. And Jean Chrétien won 504 seats against Trudeau's 501. So you are correct, my friend. And you get a really, really nicely pulled silver. And the only thing separating you from gold is Robert Toupin, the floor crosser that the NDP gladly welcomed on their front in 1986. So
That
there
is
you
a
go.
good piece of trivia. So I appreciate that. All right. Well, thanks very much. And thanks to the people who submitted some questions. That was fun.
Absolutely. And more people I didn't mention, but it's just because I had too much. But I will use your suggestions and shout you out. So thank you for the suggestion, Sasha.
All right. Number of the week. Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll go. It's get back to that Quebec poll, and I know I don't want to make too much about Quebec, but we didn't have many. We didn't have any provincial numbers in the past week, so it was only Quebec. Who among these party leaders would make the best premier? 30% is the winner with "don't know." The leader is "don't know," which is something we don't see other places right now, like in Ontario, like in federal level. Paul Saint-Pierre Poilievre is first with 23%, Charles Milliard 17%, but it's still not that strong. Again, the electorate is so split in Quebec. The Parti Québécois, as I said, is favored in every metric. But not even a quarter of respondents chose Plamondon, and even lower for the other leaders. This is going to be quite the election. I'm saying this again because it will be. That's my number of the week.
Yeah, it is going to be Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon's second election, but I still think for a lot of people he's entirely filled in, in terms of what they think of him. So my number of the week is going to be 26.
Okay.
So 26 was the gap between Marc Carney and Pierre Poilievre on the best prime minister question in Nanos, but it was also the gap in the favorability versus approval ratings for Marc Carney and Pierre Poilievre in both the Liaison and the Angus Reid Institute polls. Ooh. So all three, asking different questions with different wording, all had a 26-point gap between Marc Carney and Pierre Poilievre. Yeah. So if you're looking for a number of what's the personal gap between those two, you could do worse than 26 because that seems to be the consensus among the three. Wow. And I just thought that coincidence was rather interesting that all three polls had a 26-point gap between the two leaders. So it's a big number. But
it is anyway. A big number. Yeah, it is a big number. Yes. So the best premier tracker. I mean, Carney is still over 50. He's gone down a little bit, but he's still over 50. We're approaching May, and he's still over 50. So yeah.
Yeah, that over-under of how long it would be while he could remain over 50. Well, I'm very, very curious to see how far we're going to get. But,
yep, absolutely.
Anyway. All right, well, that'll be it for this week's episode. We are going to have a bonus episode next week on Monday. We're going to try to do a mailbag, so we will put a call out for questions from our members on the Patreon and on Discord for those questions. So if you want to be a member of the Patreon and get your question asked and get the episode, you can join us at thenumberspod.ca. And apart from that, Philippe, I hope that you have a great weekend. I hope that the Habs come out of it with a couple of wins at home, and then we can chat next week.
Absolutely. Merci beaucoup, Eric. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Have a great weekend.